to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lone Star Gridiron Texas High School Football Coaches Show, Season 3, Episode 24. Can you believe it? Episode 24 of Season 3. Season 3 is almost over. Today's guest is Coach Richard Whitaker from Lavaca Calhoun. But before we get to him...
This show is brought to you by the book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My Texas High School Football Coach. A handbook of wisdom for parents, young people, and yes, even coaches. Head over to www.learnedfromcoach.com and order your copy to support sharing the stories of these great coaches and leaders. That's learnedfromcoach.com.
Did you play Texas high school football? If you did, you're part of an elite group, the Brotherhood of Texas High School Football. All football players, past and present, who have ever suited up in the Lone Star State are eligible. Go to LoneStarGridiron.com/brotherhood. And thank you for the part you played in the greatest sport in the greatest state.
You're listening to the LSG Sports Network, the authority on Texas high school football. All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Richard Whitaker from Lavaca Calhoun to the show. Coach, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you, sir?
I cannot complain. As I said many times on this show, I get to talk Texas high school football with coaches, so that makes my day start off pretty darn good.
That is outstanding. Absolutely.
All right, so if you could, let's start off with when you kind of first figured out that you wanted to be a football coach.
Well, I was recruited out of high school as a track athlete. I went to Northwestern State, Louisiana on a pole vault scholarship. And when I tell the kids that now, they don't believe me because I've gained so much weight over the years. But you know, I was just always very involved with athletics. And although I was not involved in football in college, I certainly, you know, still love football and followed it. And just always had a passion of being around and being a part of athletics. And that's something I grew up with and certainly had a desire to do. And I was very blessed in my young years of coaching. I coached for a couple of years around Corsicana, and then I was hired on at Houston Aldine. And Bill Smith was the head coach at Aldine High School. And this was a turning point in a young coach's career. It was a blessing. And I know I don't stand alone. There's so many coaches that came out of Bill's coaching staff that feels the same way that I do. But, you know, Bill played for Bill Yeoman at University of Houston back in the 60s, and Bill had a philosophy of running option football, and it's kind of an old school style football, but it was something that was very successful. And in 1990, as a very young coach there at Aldine, we were the state and national champions. In 89, we lost in the state championship. 90, we won it. 91, we lost in the semifinals. In 96, we lost in the semifinals. But it was just a great run while I was there with Coach Smith, and I learned a lot. And I got to serve as his offensive coordinator my last 4 years there prior to taking the head job down in Kingsville. But that's kind of how, you know, my career got started and why I do what I do nowadays.
Got it. So if you could, I know you kind of mentioned the stops you've made, but let's go stop by stop about when you kind of jumped on board with the first job, what you learned there and stuff like that.
Well, the first job I had was at Kerens High School up in it was outside of Corsicana, and the head coach there was Jerry Dunn Anderson. Jerry Dunn's son Russell was a pole vaulter as well, and he was vaulting at North Texas State when I vaulted at Northwestern. And we had in high school we had vaulted against each other a few times and kind of worked out at the same place up toward Waco together. And so anyway, I got to know Jerry Dunn very well, and he offered me an opportunity to come on board there with him before I ever was out of school there at Northwestern State. So I went on board there at Kerens with him for 2 years, and it was a great opportunity. You know, in a small school, you coach everything. You coach, you're coaching junior high, you're coaching high school, and basketball, baseball, track, and everything. So that was a great opportunity for me to get my feet wet in a program where I was working with all different levels of kids and things. But I had a great opportunity from there, like I said, to move to Aldine High School, and Aldine was in '89. Aldine had played Permian for a state championship. I knew it was a great program, and so I didn't hesitate in taking on that responsibility, that role of going there and being a part of that coaching staff. And like I said, that was the best thing I've ever done in my career. I spent 9 years at Aldine High School. 4 of those years I served as offense coordinator under Coach Smith, and was able to call the offense with him and learned a lot about the option game. And after 9 years, I was offered the head football job down in Kingsville at H.M. King High School. It was a great opportunity for a first-year head football coach because I was not the athletic director at the time. I was just the head football coach, so I could focus solely on football and not have to worry about all the other things that go along with the athletic director's job. And I was there for 6 years. It was a great time, great 6 years, and coached a lot of great kids and learned a lot about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to change, how I wanted to adapt what I had learned and kind of put my own twist to some things. And after those 6 years, I was given an opportunity to come to Calhoun High School in Port Lavaca. That was 13 years ago. And it was a job that was struggling. It was a program that had been struggling. They had not had a winning season since 1991. They had not been in the playoffs since 1961. And our first year we went 2-8. That was back in 2005. We went 2-8. And the second year we go 9-3 and win a district championship. And we make the playoffs the next 10 consecutive years and went over 100 football games during that stretch. And that was just has been an amazing run. The option game, I think, is just, like I said, what I learned at Aldine under Coach Smith has helped me tremendously to be able to take all levels of kids and be able to adapt to the things that we do and go out and have some success on the field. And I'm so blessed to have had that opportunity as a young coach.
Well, I tell you, when you got there, when you showed up at Fort Lavaca Calhoun and things started turning around, I'm showing the homer in me right now because my father-in-law was class of '64 sand crab.
Wow.
Yeah, and I grew up, you played at Vanderbilt Industrial, so I'm from that area too. So it was exciting to see everything change for what had been a doormat program.
Well, it was, you come in, I know you had mentioned in the top of the show about, how to be a successful coach or whatever, but you come in and the thing you're hoping for is you get kids and parents to buy into what you're wanting to do. And that happened. It happened quickly. And although we went 2-8 that first year, our kids were excited. We would lose, 60-0 on Friday night, and they were all there Saturday excited about, getting back to watching film and working out Saturday morning. And I just kept telling our coaching staff, I said, they're buying into what we're wanting and they're excited about what we're doing. And as long as they do this, we're going to have a chance. And we did. We didn't know it would turn that quick. But we were very blessed, that second year to get things turned and get it going.
Nice. Definitely. Talk to me a little bit about one of the unique aspects of Fort Lavaca Calhoun, like you've alluded to, is the running game. I remember a game a couple years ago, Calhoun against, I think, Rosenberg Terry. There were probably 3 passes in the entire game, which is so strange in today's football. Talk about that, how that stands out there.
Well, there's always critics because when you watch professional football or you watch most of the colleges, nowadays are in a spread offense and throwing the ball around. And So I do have my critics, although, we felt like we've been pretty successful. But, the philosophy behind, one of the main philosophies behind running the ball is, especially the last 4 years we've been in the district with Rosenberg and Angleton, we don't have the athletes that those folks have. It's just, God's honest truth, and so we feel like defensively we don't match up very well. So you better shorten the game. You better have a philosophy where you're not going to be defending 120 plays per game on defense. And the philosophy of running the football is we're going to make a first down, and now we're going to scratch and claw and make the next first down. And as long as we're doing that, our defense is sitting on the sideline, and we're not having to match up. We're not having to go out and defend, 100 plays a game. And so I think that has kept us in a lot of games and gave us an opportunity. And, the other thing is the option game is just, I've always felt like it balanced the field and it leveled the playing field of athletes. We may not have the tallest or fastest kids, but, when you're reading and you're optioning different people and you're changing what their responsibilities are on defense, as long as your quarterback is putting the ball where it needs to be put, and that's a hard chore to do sometimes, you've got a chance to move the football and make first downs. And that's what I loved about the option game. And again, it all goes back to, keeping that clock running, making first downs, and keeping the other offense on the sideline. That's a big deal.
Definitely. Now let's jump back into some of your influences. You dropped a couple names of coaches. Talk about a few of them and the specific things that you learned from them.
Well, Bill Smith is first class. He was inducted into the Texas High School Hall of Fame here just a couple years ago. He's also in the Houston area Hall of Fame. And but not only was I able to work under Bill Smith, on the staff that I joined, you had Coach Pat Patterson at the time was the defense coordinator. Pat went on and was the head coach at Aldine Eisenhower and Tomball High School and had a very successful career. Also, Richard Carson was on that. He was kind of my mentor coach when I first got to Aldine. Richard went on. He became the offense coordinator at Eisenhower and then the head coach at Eisenhower, who went on and they played Midland Lee in a state championship back in the later 90s, and he became the first head coach of College Park High School. He just retired a couple years ago. Clarence Guyton was a guy that had been on staff at Aldine years before I got there, and he had left. But when I got my job in Kingsville, he was the first coach I hired. I hired him as my DC, and I learned so much from Clarence. He's such a motivating coach, a coach that players just will run through a brick wall for. They love him. And I think all those guys, along with Bill, those times there at Aldine, I could never go back and exchange. And I was so blessed. I've said it 2 or 3 times now. So blessed as a young coach to learn from those guys on, how to motivate and how to get. I think that's one of the biggest keys today is to be in touch with the kids and know what they're going through and what's going through their lives and all about them. It's not just what happens when they get to school, but it's all about them. And those guys were so personal with the kids and got along so well with them and had such great, respect from the kids. And that's something I strive to do every day is to live up to what those guys taught me.
Excellent. You mentioned being in touch with the kids and as we move the conversation away from the X's and O's of a running game and slowing down things, let's talk about that. The people who think of football as just a game are missing some seriously important aspects of it as a development tool. If you could talk about that.
No, absolutely. And I mean no disrespect whatsoever to anyone in our community, but we have so many kids that are in broken homes, or so many kids that might not have a dad at home, and it may be a cliche to say that, but we are their second parents. Sometimes maybe their initial parents, and that's an important role for coaches. It's one of I think the greatest thing that coaches, the power that we have sometimes over kids and the influence we have. And I take that very serious, and I ask my staff to take that very serious. And we are very much involved in our kids' lives. They know my door is always open to them, and I was on vacation in Florida here just a week or two ago and trying to get away from everything for a week or so. And my phone was ringing, and I had a kid that had some situations, you know, and I told my wife, I said, I've got to take this and got to talk to him. And so, you know, that makes me feel good when I feel like I'm trusted enough by the kids that they can turn to me about some of their deepest problems, and again, trying to mold them in what we feel like they, you know, need to be successful in life. You know, we want them to be successful husbands and successful fathers and successful business guys, and you know, we talk about that every day and try to mold them in that right direction, and that's an important aspect of being a coach, I believe.
Definitely. Now, one of your other jobs is hiring coaches. So, you obviously, other than filling the right teaching slot, what are some of the things you look for, and what clues help you decide, hey, this is the guy?
Well, I'm always looking, you know, and you certainly, I love having feedback from coaches they've worked for or been around, and of course all coaches do that. You know, we call each other, we trust each other, and it's a great fraternity we have with coaches, because I know I can pick up the phone and I can call numerous coaches, and those guys are going to be very honest with me, but you're looking for coaches that care. You're looking for coaches that love kids, that love and have a passion and enthusiasm about what they're doing, that don't mind sacrificing, you know, their time to, you know, make sure the kids and programs taken care of, and you know, just good moral folks, and you know, again, that's working along with your principal, and certainly, like you mentioned, you know, we've got to fill certain spots. I can't just go out and hire 15 PE teachers. I've got to make sure I have math teachers and English teachers and whatever. That's a hard job sometimes, especially when you're isolated like we are way down here on the coast. You know, I'm not in a city where I have a large pool to choose from. So when you're dealing with somebody who has a family, I mean, it's, you know, that's a big responsibility or a big move for a lot of people to pick up and pack up and move to a place like Port Lavaca or somewhere close to here. So, you know, again, that's one of the first things I ask coaches is, you know, do you love kids and you love being around kids, and are you going to be there for them when they need you? And you know, that's the kind of staff I love being around. And, you know, again, I think that helps start building success and help them buy into what you want to do.
For sure. When you move into a program like Port Lavaca, it moves at a different pace than a Dallas or a Houston. But what turns something like that around from an average team to a team that is just on fire about everything their kids are, you know, participating in?
Well, I just think the parents, you know, we reached out big time to our parents. We had several parent meetings when I first got here, and we did a lot of home visits when I first got here, and just trying to convince parents that this was not going to be status quo. We were not going to accept the fact that, you know, for 45 years we've been getting our brains beat in here. We're going to continue to do that. That we were bringing in a program that was going to be successful if they would work with us and get their kids to work with us, and you know, I believe that helped a lot in the beginning. We don't do, we certainly, you know, all my parents have my number, you know, and I have their number, and I reach out to parents all the time, but I don't have to do as much of that anymore, you know, 13 years into this, I did the initial year, because now people, they know, they believe, and they know what kind of program we have. And so I think that helped take things off. And then, you know, like I said, getting the kids to buy into it. And, it was just so exciting watching the kids. Even, you know, we won a couple games that first year, and, you know, the stands were going crazy. We were moving the ball pretty well, having a little success that maybe they didn't have offensively prior to that. So there was just some little things that we sold the kids on. You know, if we can take those little things and start adding them up, it's going to add up to a big thing, and that's going to be success here real soon. And so we kept pushing that, and the kids kept buying into that.
Nice. As we know, kids crave being loved. They also crave being disciplined. How do you balance that carrot versus the stick?
Well, it's tough love. It's like, you know, you would expect any, you know, great parent to have tough love with their kids. I mean, our kids know there are consequences for their actions. They are responsible for their actions, and if there's you know, something that is out of line with what our school district's asking or what we're asking, then there's going to be some heavy consequences. And, you know, those consequences could mean playing time on the field or certainly, you know, punishment or whatever. But, you know, we we don't just talk about it. There's actions, and you got to have actions to back up what what you're talking to the kids or want them to do. And so our kids know that. And, we've been we have set some very good players in the past for, some serious infractions. And I think that has opened eyes to the kids behind them that, hey, we're going to do right and do the right thing and make sure we're not getting in trouble because we don't want to miss that. So I certainly, again, I think it all goes back to tough love, but you've got to have actions. It can't just be words all the time. You got to let the kids know you mean what you're saying, and they do. They know one thing about Richard Whitaker. When I stand in front of them, I'm going to look them in the eye, and what I say, that's the way it is. I don't ever change my word. I don't ever change what I'm telling them. What I say, that's the way it is. And so at least they know where they stand with me, and the parents know where they stand with me, and I think that's the best policy.
For sure. On as far as kids today, I've heard two different responses. Either kids today are changed, this millennial generation, the one beyond, and I've also heard now kids are the same. They're all the same. What's your take?
Well, I think there are a lot more, things in the world today that probably draw them away from being in athletics. I mean, there's probably a lot more opportunities today than there were when we grew up. Certainly, I grew up in a very small town and there was nothing else to do. I mean, that's everybody was involved in athletics, but there's so many more things going on today with technology and job opportunities for young kids and things so forth where, they want to grow up faster, I believe. They want cars, they want phones, they want whatever. Well, they got to have money to have that, so they got to have jobs to get that. So that's certainly a balance that a lot of times we have to work around, especially some of our older kids. And when we get to that point, we work with them very well. And I've got a pretty good relation with a lot of the managers here, at Walmart, HEB, and places like that will help a lot of our kids if they want to work and still participate. We work it out with them. And but it is different than I think it's different than it was certainly 20, 25 years ago, just because there's a lot more pull from outside for the kids to be involved in other things or to do other things. And so that's something we fight with a lot, but I still believe kids boils back to, like you said a while ago, the kids want to be disciplined, they want to be loved, and they want to have an opportunity, and all of those things are certainly a part of our program.
Amen. So, last question, moving forward, what do you see as goals? What's your future look like?
Well, I'm going to do this as long as I'm enjoying, getting up every day and coming up here and doing this. I tell you, I've got 30 years in. My goal every day is to help kids succeed. And as long as I feel like I'm having fun doing that and I'm being successful doing that, I'm going to continue doing this for a while. I don't see a retirement anytime in my near future, but, I think, and I know it's different for fans and it's different for school boards and whatever, but to me, success is not always wins and losses on the field. Success is helping your kids in your program, making sure they're graduating, making sure you're molding them into the young man that you want them to mold them into, and being there for them and directing them into whether they're going to college or they're going to the workforce or whatever they're doing. And you're hoping that they're going to remember back to some of the things that you've taught them in your program that's going to help them be successful fathers, husbands, and so forth. And to me, if that's happening in your program, then you're being successful. And the wins and losses certainly are a part of it, but as long as those are the goals that ultimately I have every day is to help kids in their life. And if I can continue to do that for a while, then I'm very content and hopefully be around doing this for a while.
Amen. Coach Richard Whitaker, I want to thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day and chatting with us.
Well, it's been an honor, and I appreciate you calling.
Imagine a game where you can pit the greatest Texas high school football teams of all time against each other. Before now, if you wanted to see the Permian Panthers of Friday Night Lights fame play Johnny Manziel's 2010 Kerrville squad, you were stuck with only your imagination. Not anymore. This new game allows you to play those dream matchups. 1983 Dangerfield, only allowed 8 points all season. 2015 Katy, 10 shutouts en route to their 4th straight championship appearance. 2008 Allen, their first of 5 championships in the state's largest classification, and so many more. Friday Night Legends is that game. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Friday Night Legends.
Head over to FridayNightLegends.com and pick up a copy for yourself or a gift for that football lover in your life. That's FridayNightLegends.com.
You're listening to the LSG Sports Network, the authority on Texas high school football.